Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. To the contractor, as far as we know, our 410A has worked well. Our customers, it didn't work as well as our 22. We know that. But our 410A seems to work. Homes are cool. We're doing our job. And then, like I said, I just wasn't up on things. I mean, when did this take place where we're replacing our 22 or our 410A rather? And what are we replacing it with?
Sean came after me. He and I had worked together as he hit on there in a prior life, and I thought he'd bring great pride, which he certainly does, to ACCA and our members. But when I started in 16, the train was already leaving the station. Like this is where contractors and us listening and working closely with manufacturers and talking about that and looking, I think, so critical. But that's when, soon after that, I think it was probably 18 that our board made a formal vote to invest in creating, because no one else was, a training to get contractors ready for this, because we can't go and look what they've done in Europe, because again, all of our systems are different, the charges and everything. So that was our way of at least trying to protect contractors and their most valuable resource, the technicians, of making sure they were educated. And then it kind of forced us to stay in this, because again, we're kind of the end user of it, but again, the train right now has left the station on 3Ls. Like, we got to play catch up on the next, because this one, the twos aren't going to be good enough for long enough. So the threes are going to be here. And then you can define what a three is. Is that full propane? Is that full butane? And you can't be, again, I love picking on my father-in-law, Gary Morris, but you can't be like him. He's like, I'll be gone. My business will be, that'll be someone else. Cause he talks about a 608 card, and none of the refrigerants that he actually got certified on are something he uses anymore anyway.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
can't just be like him where you just have one or two people with a 608. Like, you need people that know how this stuff works, and we need to care about it. And we also need to not step over the value that it has to recover it, because it's silly to see someone illegally vent. They're literally just wasting it. You guys work way too hard to get new customers, and you don't need to step over the money that, there's no need to market if you're stepping over, $1,000 for worth of refrigerant that you could have gotten from a system. And that doesn't even get into the commercial guys of the big checks that they're dealing with.
So what's the refrigerant? What's the newest refrigerant coming out?
Well, everyone wants their proprietary stuff, right? You've got the big guys in manufacturing have theirs. So 34 is Sean, is that?
Well, R32 is, the primary ones in the residential space are going to be R32 and R454B. And those, are marginally less efficient than 410A. They're also mildly flammable. And we've had concerns about that. I mean, they're really, they say mildly, and if you you have to have just the right conditions to cause an explosion. But of course, if you've got it deployed in thousands and thousands of homes all around the country, and your warehouse and your trucks, doesn't take that many mistakes to have some really big issues for companies and for your consumers. And that's why ACCA has been very involved in first slowing this down by ensuring that these were not in the model codes for at least one code cycle, where the industry really wanted to see these refrigerants in the model codes. So we slowed down to make sure we had time to get the proper safety standards and training in place. That also, I believe, slowed down some of the transition that has been legislatively mandated by Congress, and then, of course, implemented by with our friends at EPA and DOE to slow down the to actually implement this transition. But ultimately, there's only so much that we've been, that we can slow down the train, and that train is gaining steam right now. Fortunately, we did win we did win at least some victories that are going to make this transition a little less painful for contractors. I'm not saying it's not going to be painful. It certainly is. But there are a few things. One thing, they were looking to ban, they were looking to ban non-refillable cylinders. So the cylinders that you're using every day in your work, we're going to have to be replaced with much heavier non-refillable or refillable cylinders that don't fit in your trucks, that cost more, are not readily available, cause more workplace injuries because they're heavier. And that was going to be a huge burden, and it was going to be implemented very quickly. We joined with some of our partners to, file a lawsuit to prevent that, because it really wasn't in the law. This is something EPA took on its own. And we won that lawsuit. We got that rule thrown out. I mean, think what it would have cost to re-outfit all your trucks, all those racks, for these heavier, different size cylinders, for instance.
Right.
So we won on that victory, and then late in the year, we were really blindsided. The whole industry was blindsided when EPA, in their rule implementing this AIM Act, proposed that December 31st of this year, 2024, they're going to ban not only the manufacture of 410A equipment, but they were going to ban the installation of that equipment, because they defined the point of manufacture being actually hooking everything up in the field as part of the manufacturing process, which is kind of crazy. Nobody's ever defined manufacturing that way. But that was the definition they were going with. And talking to our manufacturer partners, they're like, we're going to have to shut down production this spring. They would have been shutting down production this spring, and you folks wouldn't have had anything to install this summer because they aren't ready to really roll out the new equipment. And so, because nobody wants to be left holding the bag when the music stops on December 31st. We fought that, and we won a 1-year sell-through period. So at least they know that, they're going to be transitioning pretty darn soon here to the new refrigerants. But at the very least, they can still make the old stuff until the end of this year, and you'll have time to sell it, so it's not left stranded in your warehouse. So,
yeah, that I don't understand either. I mean, if I wanted to buy 100 units, I should be able to sell them whenever I want. And now they're mandating when I have to sell it by. I mean, that
they are in your state, depending where you are. Your state may have a different enforcement than where the feds are too. So they may. So it's
just wrong. That's wrong. And we sit by and allow it. What? And I'm going to get to the last question I'm going to ask is, what can we do? And I want you guys to think about that. I want like 3 main things. What can we do as contractors, or what should we be doing already? But we'll table that for now. So let's look into, we got a few minutes here. Let's look into, there's only what? In today's world, there's probably 6 manufacturers that make 150 brands. Is that fair to say?
Oh boy, Greg, Sean and I get a chance to see a little more glimpse of the world market of how many. There's so many different equipment manufacturers at most contractors. It's a smorgasbord of, and then a lot of them are making stuff with the brand that but they now trying to come to the market themselves. So it's branded under a well-known name here in the U.S., but they've actually been making it for them. But they've got their sights set now in the U.S. market too. So it's a big,
So, but there's about 150 brand names, and they keep coming out with more.
Right.
And there's not that many manufacturers, because there's only a handful that make all those. And it's everybody private labels. We've been private labeling for over 20 years, but everybody private labels today because, so if I say some names that a lot of these guys carry their product, if I say, and if you don't feel comfortable doing this, that's okay. Just let me know. But if I say, Carrier, Bryant, are they supporting ACCA?
Carrier does. They don't come in with the Bryant name. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of them lead they kind of look at different segments. Like we've got like Daikin and Goodman maintain separate memberships because Goodman was a partner of ACCA's before the Daikin merger, and they've kept that separation, but they don't have, some of their other names under it. But that Carrier is a great example of being a partner in contractor excellence.
What about Train?
Yes.
Train is. How about Lennox?
Lennox is not a supporter of ACCA currently.
So Lennox makes Lennox, or somebody makes Lennox, and Lennox makes Armstrong, Moncrief, Luxair, probably 20 other names. And they don't support the ACCA, but we're supporting Lennox by buying their product.
We would love to have Lennox be a partner in contractor excellence, and I think it would help us kind of, work through some of the challenges we talked about here. We want to make sure contractors, we know from what happened during COVID and distribution challenges, most contractors have gone to, instead of having one primary distributor and brand they're using to three. So the exposure, they're still struggling. I was with one of our contractor members yesterday, and commercial guy out of Texas, he's got a 42-week lead time if he needs this type of chiller or this here, 42 weeks. So he's shopping. Like, he used to be really loyal to a manufacturer. He's looking for who can fill the needs of his customer.
Yeah. So how about Ream, Rude?
Yes, sir. Well, the Ream name is and
Rude is as well. We've got a sub agreement with Rude.
Okay. Who else am I missing? The big supporter, or who's not?
Well, JCI in York. That's one you're not on the list.
Yeah, and one that I love, and they're not a equipment manufacturer, but a compressor. It's now under the Copeland brand. I always thought them as Emerson, but I'm working on getting my head around using Copeland. But they've been one that they're much like an insurance partner we have. They're just there. They want to make sure that they're there to listen. So we want that for all of our members. And if they're not at our show and on our stage where you can ask questions, you may want to, like you said, kind of scratch your head and go, I wonder why. Do they not? And sometimes I think some of them forget that you guys are their ultimate key to their success. If you decide to change brands, it doesn't mean anything to your customer. I've reminded of that. We've got contractors, and you pick the town in, Michigan or over in Maryland, but they have, for a sizable town, they may have 80-90% of the market. And if they decide to change from, Bryant to Daikin, their customers don't care. That's them and the loyalty that they choose to have the company. And I sometimes think that the manufacturers forget, and they always need that reminder from you guys. And
yeah,
I watch that again.
We're not doing a good job at that. We are not. We're not doing a good job at that. We're not doing a good job staying up on our own industry. This is our bread and butter, and we're not in the ACCA and groups. I don't even know if there's anything compared to you guys in the HVAC world. You're it. There's some other.
You mentioned our mixed groups, and for those that aren't familiar, this our management information exchange. It's our peer groups. It's no additional cost for you once you're an ACCA member. We've Matt Grizzard, that's on Sean's team, has done an excellent job of almost doubling the participants in that program the past couple of years. But we're basically the matchmaker of pairing you together with usually like-sized, non-competing contractors that becomes your circle of trust as small business owners. You guys lumping together, men and women, but y'all are not trusting, and finding a place that you can have trust. Like our benchmarking, we've got all kinds of great questions. And if everyone would feed into that, you all would know so much more. But the mixed group is where that trust happens. And it's where it happens for figuring out what different service providers use from a technology standpoint. And anyway, Greg, you could, I'm sure at another time, give a much better testimonial, but I love getting to sit in on those. It is amazing. And the friendships that come from them.
Absolutely. So like I said, we're supporting manufacturers buying their product, and they're not supporting you, some of them. what would you, in just 60 seconds, give me, what would you do? What should the contractor do if they're interested in contacting the manufacturer and saying, hey, you guys need to be more involved in ACCA? What should they do?
Sean, you want to go for it?
Well, I'd say, one of the key levers on this, I think, is anybody participating in the manufacturer's elite dealer programs, and particularly working through the distributors that administer those programs. Because even if they're an ACCA corporate partner, we'd love to have a deeper relationship there where, hopefully, as an elite dealer, rather than, having those programs fund a bunch of beach junkets where they're watching, product launch video watch parties at the beach, send them to ACCA conferences to get real content for your owners, managers, even the service managers forum we're holding out in Pasadena in November. Those are events that are more substantive. We'd love to see some manufacturers through their elite dealer programs make the commitment to say they're going to buy ACCA membership for all their elite dealers, or upgrade their elite dealers memberships. Really, come in and foster the growth of these companies, and particularly where they really need it. But coming into this refrigerant transition, and we haven't even had a chance to mention that, we've really invested heavily in developing an A2L refrigerants training that is free for all ACCA members. It's included for your entire team in your membership. That's something that, and of course it's available for purchase to anybody who's not a member. But, God, we need to have the manufacturers investing in that impartial, independent training for their folks to ensure that their teams, their customers are safe with this transition, and that they're, have some legal protection as well. So.
Well, and Greg, if I could just piggyback on Sean, lots of great stuff you hit on there in ways, but the duplication of what we have in this industry, wasting your time. Greg, I suspect in your business, y'all are probably somewhat loyal to a brand, but you probably have a couple that you use, and the manufacturer is kind of pinning you down, and your most valuable resource is your time. Same for your members of your team, and making you have to get that for that refrigerant manufacturer and that OEM, and versus us working together and have standard trainings. And if they need to brand it for something and put it on their LMS, great, but we don't need all this. I mean, that's a waste of time, to as long as we have a standard that we can all agree on. And that's that's the reason we make such investments to have our standards that are ANSI certified, and have trainings where we invite everyone, all the different manufacturers and refrigerant manufacturers to come in and help assemble that for us. So that duplication, that's one of the things that kills me, is how much of y'all's time is being wasted of having to jump through hoops for every different individual.
So to answer your question of how to engineer that change, heck, it's, whatever your point of contact with that distributor is, your territory manager, whoever you're working with, heck, put in a co-op dollar reimbursement request for ACCA membership, for ACCA training. And if it's not approved, ask why. I think that's a good point of leverage to start that conversation, and hopefully get that fed back up to the leadership team of that distributor, and then eventually the manufacturer.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Okay, so wrapping it up here, I want you to give us three things that three other things that we should be doing, that you guys think we should be doing. But are there any other questions that I should be asking you guys while I got you here, that you said, man, I wish he would ask me this, because they really need to know this?
I'm looking back to grab, Sean, I'll take one if I could. But
Sure.
One thing, we talk about the number one constraint in growth for businesses is workforce. But I think that workforce issue, first of all, we got to work on better consumer education. The highs and lows of this industry, we got to fix. And I think consumer education is a great way to do that, where we're not having 90% of replacements that break down, and those being in weather extremes. But be proud. I look at this industry and I watch, again, I use my family as an example, but my father-in-law didn't want his son to come work in it, but yet it's provided an amazing life for he and my mother-in-law. He didn't even think about my wife being part of the business. And you see so many great women that are now leaders in running business. So we shouldn't, and now you're seeing more techs, but we got to be proud. We can't complain about workforce when we don't even want our own families to come and work and be part of these businesses. I get it. It's tough work and every day is a new problem of a wreck or someone falling through a roof or whatever, but it's an awesome business. It has provided some amazing, you know, success stories. And y'all
Oh,
are
absolutely.
employers that you should be proud of. And the other one, to piggyback on the pride part, this really attracted me to ACCA when I was doing my research. This is the only industry I've ever been part of all the different groups and working for conservation sportsman groups and stuff where I had this kind of, you know, springboard to jump off of. Y'all are the only people that work and are in people's home and businesses once, if not twice a year, and they're trusting you with this huge expensive investment that they're now going to make every 10 to 12 years. The political power that comes from that, if you would just feed back into the ACCA machine where we could help you with those relationships. I was just with one of our board members with a congressman that's an HVAC, former HVAC contractor in Texas. I was with him this weekend, but I was kind of connecting those dots where Congressman Weber and our board member Vince Gillette out of Texas can be buddies and talk. And Vince can share this stuff like 42-week lead time. The congressman serves on a committee where he can work on that. Like why? How do this is choking down our economy when we have that kind of stuff. Anyway, Sean, there's my one.
Well, I'll just piggyback on that personal involvement. I mean, yes, we talked about joining ACCA and upgrading, hiring ACCA to do more for you. But of course, ultimately, members of Congress don't care what we think as inside the Beltway folks. They care what you, the constituents, think, and that's why we really hope contractors will get involved at a more fundamental level. This includes getting involved in filling out our action alerts on our website. Cultivating relationships with your elected officials. And we're going to be relaunching an ACCA Advocacy Day here in DC coming up in 2025. So you can actually come to Washington, build those relationships. But even more importantly, we're looking to facilitate those relationships back in the district. And that's something that we can do, just coaching you. There's more we can do if you get involved in ACCA's Political Action Committee, ACCA PAC, things like the event that Bart was just describing. So there's a lot that contractors can do to really reinforce those relationships, and then also get involved in your state associations. We've got what we call our allied contracting organizations in Ohio. Yours is ACCO, Air Conditioning Contractors of Ohio. They had a recent victory. I mean, we didn't even forget about refrigerants. A number of localities are moving to ban natural gas in new construction, or even in banning natural gas as part of any of their efficiency rebate programs. We believe, heck, electrification makes sense in a lot of places, but a lot of places it doesn't, or it can be part of a dual fuel solution. And so we fight for, giving consumers and contractors the choice to pick the most appropriate technology. And one thing I'm really excited about, Washington State, our state association out there, is actually launching a ballot initiative. They passed fuel choice, maintaining it through the legislature in Ohio. And I'm really excited to see that happen. Washington State, the legislature won't do it. And so they're taking it to the voters. And so this is the kind of thing that contractors are getting involved in different places, and we're eager to facilitate that. So really encourage that. And then if I could, I think we're up to two. The third thing is to build your network. And it's so exciting to then make these connections in person at every level of your company. And so I want to really invite everybody out there. Send your service managers. So really, it's called the Service Managers Forum, but your emerging leaders to come to our Service Managers Forum coming up in Pasadena, California, November 10th through 13th of this year. And that's really for all your emerging leaders to sort of learn those skills. Often, you're promoting people from the truck, and then next thing you know, they're managing a team, and they've never gotten formal training in managing a team. This is really where they can learn those leadership skills to really level up with your company, and maybe someday allow you to take a vacation.
Yeah.
And then for yourself as an owner or senior manager, or really a broader cross-section of your team, we hope to see you at ACCA 2025, our annual conference coming up in Austin, Texas, which is March 23rd through 25th in Austin. Should be a ton of fun. Really hope to see you there. So, and those are always opportunities to help set our policy priorities. We'll have our town hall, and we'll be soliciting feedback, not just in person, but also online to help set our priorities. Let us know. I mean, there are all sorts of nuances. Heck, right now, talking about this transition, we've been talking about the transition to A2Ls, but they're really pushing to accelerate a transition even beyond the A2Ls. New York's talking about 2030, moving away from this stuff to highly flammable refrigerants. Things like propane, and figuring out how we could potentially engineer that transition, completely changing up the technology with monoblock air-to-water heat pumps, things like that. We've heard manufacturers say, if the New York regulations stand as they are, they're not going to be able to sell equipment in the New York market starting in 2030. Things like that, you'd have an entire state not. So, I mean, this is an opportunity to let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods and help set our priorities going forward.
Real quick, are they still trying to, or is this on the books about doing away with 80% furnaces?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's already happening. It's more of a state by state issue. We've tried to have a federal standard, and it's going to happen county by county in states like California. It's crazy. We're working towards removing consumer choice, which ACCA believes, it's important to position contractors where they can work with their customer on what's best for their needs and what's best for them financially too.
So to all the people listening, watching, this is why you need to be a member. Not only do we have the refrigerant issues, but in Ohio, there's a lot of homes that will not, a 90% furnace will not work. It would be extremely difficult when the furnace is in the middle of the house and a slab. I mean, it changes the whole dynamics of an installation. This is why you need to get involved. And
well, this is a great example of something that's very timely. You go to acca.org/advocacy, you'll see there's an action alert up there to take action, urging your members of Congress to support a Congressional Review Act resolution that would repeal that rule. That rule went into effect on February 15th of this year. And then the effectively a ban on non-condensing furnaces is in effect late 2028. If you don't want that to happen, we need you to fill out that action alert. And you don't have to be a member, by the way. Anybody can fill out one of our action alerts to email your representative and your senators. And we expect a Senate vote on this week. So this is moving quickly.
Put it up on the screen right now so where they can see it and possibly click on it. I don't know. We'll see what we can do. But thanks for sharing that for sure. Anything else you guys want to add before we wrap it up?
Well, I know we're past our three, but Sean hit on it, but worth repeating, Greg, is your membership in ACCA is not just for the owner, it's for the entire team, from the person who handles HR and IT to all of it. We've got stuff there. And then, the peer-to-peer learning. If you've got something on your mind or something you're seeing, help us get ahead of it, because what starts in your backyard is going to end up in someone else's. And if we're not in our forum, we've got almost 11,000 people that are on that. And this is just, this is your peer group, and a bigger one, but to share with. I mean, everything from, problems you're having with, this type of van to, what you're seeing, and, where the heck is EPA on, this or that. So that, and then just always learn, if you're not learning, you're heading in the wrong direction. So that's what we're here for. And, our issues we work on are only as good as the input from our members. So, being involved and rolling your sleeves up and think of this isn't just some, accountability group you're paying in for. It's charging you, thousands of dollars a month. This is something that's as low as, less than $800 a year you can be a member of for your entire company. So we're in the volume business, but we need that army. That army gives us strength.
Absolutely.
And if you're adding additional locations, we can, our memberships, in fact, the gold and silver memberships are built around the idea of bringing on each of your locations. And that's twofold. It's one, making sure that the folks at each of those locations have access to benefits, but it's also that strength in numbers, making sure that the elected officials representing, if you're opening up locations in a half dozen cities around the state, we want the elected officials representing those areas to be aware that you're part of this fight as well. So if you're currently tagging along with one membership and you want to bring on all your locations, we'd be glad to make you a deal to make that happen.
Sounds good. Sean, Bart, thanks for being on my show, and thanks for being so informative, sharing what a lot of us should already know, but we don't know, and we're guilty of it.
Well,
So,
thank you for the opportunity, Greg, and thanks for your support of ACCA and sharing that and calling us to better understand kind of some of these issues, not just here, but when we've talked in the past too. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. I want to get more involved. I say that, but it's going to happen. I want to get more involved. This is step one right here.
Well, this is an awesome opportunity. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, guys. God bless. Have a great day.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Okay. So I am just happy to have Bart and Sean on my show. And I think we learned a lot. How important it is to be a member. Join the ACCA. It's very inexpensive, and you just get a ton of benefits for you and your team, okay, and your company. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe below. You can also support this podcast by rating and reviewing on iTunes or your preferred listening platform. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Greg McAfee Show. No spaces, no underscores. Be sure to tune in next week, and I'll do my best to keep challenging you. Thanks for listening, and as always, carry on. God bless. Make it a great day. We're not promised tomorrow. See you later.